Three, two, one. Hey everybody, welcome to another small market session. I have a very special guest today, guys. Like I'm very excited. I've been up since like 5 o'clock this morning waiting for this. Um, I got a guy on here that's done over 600 deals, okay, across the country. I mean, this guy's a superstar, and not only that, he's kind of just a regular guy like you and I. He came from he's had jobs, he's been burnt out, he knows what it's like to have bosses breathing down your neck. So without any more, I just got to introduce you, man. Chris, what's up, man? How you doing today? Chris Logan.
Awesome, Travis. I appreciate that intro, and I'm doing even better now that I'm talking to you and we're here. So thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, man, this is great. This is great. So, me and you spoke probably about a year ago, and I got introduced to you. I got to hear your story, and I just thought, man, I'd love for everybody else to hear it. So, how did this start for you, man? Like, did you always want to get into real estate?
I've always had a vision of wanting to get into real estate, but like most people, when they're first getting started, sometimes it can feel out of reach, right? Like you hear about all these people creating massive amounts of wealth through real estate, but if that was never a part of your family growing up, or you didn't have like a friend or someone that you know that was doing it, grasping that you can get into it is pretty tough, or even figuring out where to start. So I bought a lot of books trying to figure it out, but they all were just like way over my head, explaining things way too complex, and I just couldn't figure it out. So there was one day I was at my church, and a friend of mine, he was really successful. I didn't know if he was in real estate, but I asked him, "Hey, like, what's the best way to get started in real estate? I'm wanting to do it, right?" And he said, "Read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad." So I went out and got that book, and I stayed up till 3 in the morning reading it because it changed like my mindset so much. It was just so contrary to what we were learning, what I was taught growing up, and also just my view of my future and what it could actually look like and the American dream, right? So after reading that book, not long after, I saw a banner ad that Robert Kiyosaki was coming to Tampa. So I didn't want to go to the event alone, so I brought my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. And on the third day of the event, they walk through all the different ways that you could make money in real estate. But there was one that stuck out to me, and that was wholesaling real estate. At the time, I was bouncing back from my own setback, and I didn't have a lot of money. My credit wasn't probably even the best at that time either. And when I saw on the board that you could literally take a piece of paper and you could flip it and make tens of thousands of dollars by controlling real estate, not owning real estate, right? No bank loans, you know, um, no huge down payments, didn't have to have a rich uncle. I was like, that makes sense. And that was my way in. So not long after that, I signed up for a 3-day boot camp where they taught the foundation of wholesaling. And I wish I could say that things took off and ended happily ever after that we did deals. But it actually took me 6 months to land my first deal. And after I landed my first deal, like that's when things completely shifted for me. And I thought to myself, this could really be something that changes my life. It was the first time that I wrote a check to myself versus having someone else write a check.
That's the greatest feeling in the world. That's that life changing. It does, and it doesn't matter really what the amount of that first deal does it. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter the amount. Like it's beautiful when it comes in.
Yeah, brother. My first deal was for $4,000, and I was making more in my highly paid corporate job at the time, but it didn't matter. To me, that 4,000 meant way more than any amount that I could make from somebody else because I wrote that check to myself.
Yeah, man. I love your story, and it's funny. I want to rewind a little bit, guys, for everybody listening. Like he mentioned, I'm Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I'm telling you, almost every guest that we bring on that is successful in this business has read that book, and that was kind of like the switch for them mentally. So if you guys haven't read that book yet, you go to Amazon, I think you can buy a small copy now for like $8. Like that's the best investment you can make. It's a great book.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's myself for Robert Kiyosaki for the day. But yeah, man, that's really cool. I like that a lot. I like how, you just said something big, like you were making more in your regular job, so when did you see that change? Like what made you decide like, okay, it's time to go full
Yeah.
time in this?
So I had a very specific plan. I'm pretty conservative when it comes to making moves like that because the first time I tried to leave my job while doing this business, I actually wasn't set up the way I needed to. And I had to go back and get another job, right? So that was pretty humbling because I left my first job being like, bye, guys, never see you again, talk soon, you know? And it was humbling when I had to go get another job because the money just wasn't coming in as fast as I needed it to, right? So that's when I found the corporate job that I was talking about. And I said, okay, if when I leave this time, I'm going to make sure very specific things are in place before that happens because I'm not going to get caught like I was before, right? And I think a lot of people get stuck there. A lot of people are like, when's the right time to leave? So I'm gonna share with you guys what it looked like for me, and you can kind of come up with your own that makes sense for you. So for me, that meant I needed to have at least 6 to 12 months of living expenses saved in cash in the bank before I felt comfortable leaving my job. So the cool thing is with wholesaling real estate, I was able to do that in just 3 years. So inside 3 years, I was able to knock out a bunch of debt, become debt free, and set aside 6 to 12 months of savings. And the majority of that money came from the wholesaling real estate business, right? And so after 3 years, we finally left our jobs. My wife was actually able to leave after year two. It took me another year. And it was amazing. And so then we grew the business to, I want to say we grew the business to like around 350,000. And then we were having a really hard time like getting past that number, right? And so we hired a coach or mentor, and he basically said, hey, hustle will get you to 350, but if you want to grow beyond that, that's where you need systems, peoples, and processes, right? So that's when we started that journey. And 2 years before COVID, we actually decided to um, go virtual with the business because we grew our company. My wife was going on 15 appointments a week. She was just coming home exhausted at the end of every day. I'm like, there's got to be a better way. Like we can do this over the phone, right? And so gradually we shifted to going running the business from the local model to doing it virtually. And then when COVID hit and when a lot of people were kind of stuck, like not knowing what to do, sellers couldn't allow people in houses, things like that, like we had one of our best years we've had in business. And then we scaled our business to over 7 figures, put a team in place, and now we're really passionate about showing others how to do what we did and land their first deal virtually, even if they have a full-time job and zero experience.
That's beautiful, man. Great story. That's why I wanted you to get on here and talk. And I want to let
Yeah.
everybody know, like, Chris's results are for Chris. Like you might not go out here and have these same results. We want to be
Right.
honest, but like it's possible. It's definitely possible. So, I know one thing about a virtual model is I've done virtual, I've done local, and I know a lot of local guys who have stayed local. They kind of have this thing in their mind that it's like hard for them to even think about just doing it all over the phone.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, what's that process like? Like, what's the phone process like? How are you able to not have to go look at a house and still get it under contract for those who don't know?
Yeah, for sure. So, and a lot of people think that virtual also means you can't focus on your local territory. Our first virtual market was our home market, right? Which can be a little tough because you always have this kind of hesitant part behind you where if the seller pushes back on getting the contract signed over the phone, you're like, all right, I'm just going to go drive to it, right? So you have to literally imagine the place that you live is like 5 hours away, or it may as well be in another state. So you got to have discipline and just be focused on the model there. But to answer your question, the process looks like this, right? So you do marketing, you have leads come in, and or you're cold calling, which is one of my favorite ways of getting deals. And you talk with a seller, and then from there, it's all about making them feel comfortable, right? People are like, how do you build trust and rapport on the phone when people sign with you? You have to come across like you care, right? That's step one, right? Because if all you care about is the numbers, then sellers aren't going to really want to do that. And they're going to feel this uneasy feeling behind the scenes and they're going to want to meet you before signing with you, right? But when we have conversations with sellers, right, we just kind of let them know, hey, this is the way that we do things, right? Sellers don't want to be chased, they want to be led. So they're looking to you as a guiding light. They're that boat that's offshore and the waves are crazy all around them, and you're that lighthouse guiding them into shore, right? But if your light bulb isn't on in your lighthouse, right, then that's a problem, right? So what we do is we ask the four pillars of motivation. Okay. So the four pillars of motivation is we find out how much they're hoping to get for their property, the timeline they're looking to sell within, the condition of their property, and their burning why, their overall motivation. And when you ask questions in a way around those four things, it makes people trust you because they can see that you care more about solving their problem than you do about the money, right? And then from there, again, sellers want to be led. You just got to tell them what happens next. Great. So I'm glad that you feel my offer is going to be a good fit for you. Here's what happens next, right? And if you constantly leading people through what happens next, then they're going to feel comfortable because they have that known. Where there becomes a fear, and where a lot of virtual wholesalers, they make offers, sellers say yes, and then the seller goes into the witness protection program, is when they don't tell the seller what's going to happen next, and they just assume since the seller said yes, the deal's done. But it's just getting started at that point.
Yeah, that you just gave them the game. If you guys are listening to this, like for real, that was right there was a good framework. And if you guys are listening, and I don't care if you're on YouTube, Facebook, if you're in the chat live here with us on Zoom, if you got value out of that, I just want to know and put yes in the comments. Like I want to see that you guys are getting real value from this because that's what we're here for. We want to make sure we're giving y'all the best, and I think that that was good stuff. I think that that was great. Okay, so once you get rapport built, you have some rapport built, you have a seller that's on the hook, you got a contract. What's next? Let's say we're not in our local market. This is
Yeah.
in a place we've never been. What's next, Chris?
Yeah, so at that point, you want to tell them what's next. And what's next is getting the agreement signed. A lot of people will just blindly send through DocuSign, but what we want to do is we want to ask them, hey, um, so the next steps is we're going to put together this agreement that outlines the price and terms that we had agreed to. So are you going to be in front of your computer here in the next hour, right? Next 30 minutes, whatever the case may be, right? They're going to say yes or no, and you just coordinate that. And you say, great, I'm going to go ahead and prepare this, and I'm going to give you a call back in the next hour. And then once we're on, I'll send you the agreement. We'll review it together. And that way I can just be a resource for you if you have any questions, right? But really, right there, what's happening is we're surfacing objections because it's far better for a seller to have an objection while they're reviewing the agreement with you than to struggle with it quietly behind the scenes. And because they fear confrontation, they don't want to bring it up. And that's when most wholesalers lose deals. But you want to be on the phone with them while they're going through it. And if you can do that, then you can get the deal, right? And then it's not over once you tell them, once they sign the contract. From there, it's all about, okay, now that we got the agreement out of the way, here's what happens next. So we're constantly doing that. So through the entire transaction, they have peace, they feel safe, that it's a controlled process, and they feel confident to take those next steps with you.
Love it, love it. And they feel, they're like, man, here's what happens next. This is how things goes. These are words that make it sound like, hey, this guy's doing this a lot. Like
Yeah.
there's a process here, and this isn't just some random guy trying to buy a house. He knows what he's doing. So I love that.
Yeah.
You
And what's interesting about that is that the majority of people don't have a process like that, right? So if you can just write down what I just said, maybe you're watching the replay right now, and then you can implement that, you're going to see a night and day difference that happens on the phone with sellers. And obviously, there's a lot more to it there. I'm just hitting a 30,000-foot view, but that is really the way that you get deals under contract while being over the phone.
Yeah, man, that's great. So, what about buyers? What's next with the
Mhm.
buyers? So, how are we doing all of that?
Yeah. So a lot of wholesalers are taught that, if you find a good deal, it'll sell itself. And I believe this lie for a long time because um, I was always told by my coaches, hey, go find deals, and then the deals will take care of themselves. So I spent a lot of time spinning my wheels, not doing any deals, dropping and canceling contracts because it turns out the types of properties I was getting under contract, nobody wanted. They didn't want them in the area that I got them. They didn't want them for the price that I got them. They didn't want the type of property that I had. So it wasn't until I flipped the script and found my buyer first that everything changed. So when you start with buyers, you learn what they actually want, where they're buying, and what they'll pay. Then from there, you're simply just reverse engineering your marketing to find deals that match. So now you're not like hoping that deals sell. You're bringing the exact deal to your buyers that they're already looking for. And that is when wholesaling becomes a lot easier and when this business became a lot less stressful to me.
Are we doing that's great. So are we doing like kind of like reverse wholesaling is what they kind of call it, right? There's
Yeah.
terms for it. I didn't create that. I don't know who did. But yeah, that's really cool. So when it comes down to getting the contract, are you getting the
Yeah.
contract and then bringing it to the buyer, or are there some instances where you can say, "Hey, Chris, I have an opportunity. Do you want to look at it first?"
Great question. Great question. So, what we're always doing before presenting a deal to the buyer, I would say we do this 99% of the time. That's when we're getting the property under contract with the seller, and then from there we're presenting it to our buyers because assuming at that point we've already built a buyers list because we did that first, right? And a lot of people think you need massive amounts of buyers on your list, this 10,000 list of buyers. You don't. You need 25 good buyers to start. That's it. And if you have 25 good buyers, you can sell pretty much anything. So to answer your question there, um, we are getting the deal under contract with the seller, then presenting it to our buyers. However, if we do come across the deal, maybe it's a new market that we're not too familiar with, right? Or we don't really have a lot of buyers in this area and we're not sure we want to waste the seller's time and we're not really sure we can really get the deal sold. At that point, what we'll do is we'll contact some of our VIP buyers, people who are reliable. They've been proven they have cash, they close quick, they've been easy to work with. And we'll just give them a call and say, hey, listen, we have this opportunity that came across our desk here. Here is kind of like what that deal looks like. Is that something that you'd be interested in? Right? And if we can get at least one yes, we're like, okay, it's worth it, right? And so that's when we go back to the seller and then we get it done. And in that point, you also find out some valuable feedback. Maybe that buyer would say, hey, yeah, but I'd only be a buyer at 95,000. Imagine he's the only buyer you have, right? You probably want to get that deal under contract for underneath $95,000. So that's how we approach that.
Great approach, man. You obviously know what you're doing, and that comes from a lot of trial and error. You made tons of mistakes. You've lost time. I'm sure you've lost money. And look at where you're at now, right? Is that ever like a moment like the other day? I was thinking about all this. I was giving offers, and I was like, man, I used to deliver pizzas. Like I used to be delivering pizzas, and do you ever get like that? Do you ever just sit back and you're like, man, this is crazy?
For sure. Like there was a one day, I think it was last week, my wife and I were driving through we were driving through a part of St. Pete, I think it was. Yeah. And I was driving through, I'm like, man, this used to be my sales territory. I used to literally like knock on doors soliciting people for business for the marketing job that I used to have, right? And I thought to myself, how many times I was sitting in my car driving, listening to like Think and Grow Rich and Robert Kiyosaki, all of his courses and things in the car, in between appointments, wishing things were different. And now that things are, it's pretty amazing. And it's really cool to have those moments like you had with the pizza job
Yeah.
because it reminds you how far you've come. We live in a world right now where everybody else feels like they're on chapter 300 and you're like, when am I going to get there, right? But the truth is, you can't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 50. It's a totally different book, right? So all you can focus on is becoming 1% better than you were yesterday and recognizing progress, right? Because the person who is confident making calls today used to fear making those calls, was afraid of making his first call, right? So if you really pay attention to that progress, you can see that in a matter of weeks. You don't have to wait as long as Travis and I have been in this business, right? You can say, man, 2 weeks ago, I was scared to make calls, worried about what sellers going to say. Now I've made 10 calls. I feel great, right? Like, don't put off your happiness in this business or your fulfillment of your self-worth along this process. Don't put that off and wait for some imaginary time in the future because if you're not happy with who you are and where you are right now, then you're never going to be happy in the future. And I've seen it just like take people out. So
Yeah, that's so good, man, because there's never, like you said, there's never It's never going to be the right amount of money, the right position in your life. You just have to go for it if that's what you want.
Totally.
I, I was listening to a podcast earlier and I heard that like this couple, they wanted to buy a house. They seen a house. They wasn't really looking to buy a house, but the house kind of came to them and they needed a certain down payment and they didn't have it. But you know what? They made it happen anyway because
Yeah.
it happened. We only live this life once. But okay, so
Yes.
I love what you said, but back to what we were saying now. So we were talking about, okay, you got the buyer, right?
Yep.
So you got the buyer now. So now the job's not finished, right? So how are we making sure we get to the finish line virtually now that we have the seller and the buyer under an agreement?
Yeah, very cool. Sayed, what's happened? So now that we have the seller and buyer with the agreement signed, at that point, the next step, and this is so critical because this is where a lot of wholesalers lose the deal, right? So the next step is you want to, like I mentioned before, be very clear with the seller, letting them know what happens next. Okay. Hey, so for the next step, we're going to start the process of closing with the title company or the closing attorney, and they're going to be in communication with you. So you want to make sure to answer any calls coming in from this number. You got to talk to them like they're in fifth grade, right? And this is what to be aware of. And if they send you any questions through email that you're not sure how to answer, hey, feel free to reach back out to me. Save my number in your phone as Chris Homebuyer, and I'd be happy to help you and support you through the process, right? So at that point, they feel comfortable about what's going on. But what I see a lot of wholesalers do is they just assume the deal's done at that point. I got a signed seller, I got a signed buyer, it's good. And then the deals fall apart. Maybe it's a probate deal. It takes like 3 months to close, 6 months to close, and they don't talk to the seller for 6 months. The seller thinks the deal's off. They sign with somebody else, and you're having an awkward conversation. So always touch base with that seller at least once a week to let them know everything's still on track. We're good. Any questions come up, let me know. And do that up until the time of closing. Because if you can do that, you're not going to be met with any surprises.
I agree, man. I agree. Stay in touch with the title company. Stay in touch with your buyer. Stay in touch with
Yeah,
hold everyone's hand and talk to them like you're babysitting them because
totally.
that and rewind this too, guys, and listen to not just Chris's words when he was role playing a little bit, but listen to his tone. He didn't mean to do it, but he naturally did it in a tone that was very warming and very, if I was on the other end of that phone and somebody was explaining to me how the process was going to be, I'd feel really good about Chris. So don't just listen to the words, listen to how he says the words. I think that's gold here. Okay. That's some really good stuff. Um, so virtual is how it is for you. You're not going into any houses anymore yourself. You're not dealing with fleas and
Brother,
how
I
long's it
haven't
been?
physically walked into a house for like 8 years, I think.
Good for you, man. Good for you. That's good
I
stuff, man.
and by the way, I don't miss those flea houses. I remember a funny story really quick. My wife, she walked into this one house and it had been boarded up for a long time. The guy comes by, lets her in, and she was wearing like white capris. Nobody knows what to wear to houses when you're first getting started and you're going to these things in person, right? And so she was wearing these white capris. She comes out and her pants are black. And he goes, "What's that on your pants?" Right? She like these are bright white pants. They were black when she comes out of the house. She was covered in fleas. She's like, "Oh my gosh." Threw her clipboard in the house, left it behind, her flashlight, all that. And so if that is a motivation to this business virtual, I don't know what is.
Dude, I feel her pain. I've been there so many times, so I get it. And
Yeah,
it's funny because in the like I went into because I look at land and I was walking some land the other day. I came home. I didn't notice anything, but it was funny. I was stretching. I was doing a random daily stretch and
yeah.
I felt something on my back. And I looked down and I pulled a tick off of me.
Ooh,
Oh man, so I throw my clothes in the washer, I jump in the shower. 20 minutes later, I'm out of the shower and I'm like, "Where's my phone?" Oh man. I washed my phone. It was yeah. But these new iPhones, man, they're heavy duty. I mean, 20
yeah,
minutes of what it might not have been a full 20 minutes, but it was a minute and it's still working. So I don't know.
yeah.
Anyway,
Totally.
yeah.
I,
So
I've heard
yeah,
they're waterproof, so I haven't tested mine.
you ever do any FaceTimes and are you still talking to sellers or do you have people do that for you now?
Yeah, so our team does that. Now
Okay.
I don't talk to sellers anymore. My team does it, but they are all doing it over the phone. There's no FaceTime, there's
Okay.
no Zoom or anything like that. Some people do that and it works
Yeah.
for them. I'm not opposed to that, but the phone is just easier because you could be dressed however you want to be dressed at home. You could be in another country. You could be wherever, about to go hang out with your family at the beach. You're wearing a tank top and flip-flops, right? And you could be talking to these sellers. And honestly, the majority of sellers we talk to, they don't want to hop on no Zoom. Like they're looking all crazy. Their house is looking all crazy. I mean,
That is the truth. You know,
yeah,
one thing I relate to with you and why I like you so much with your content and your marketing is the fact that you and I are kind of similar with we say things that other people don't like find a buyer first.
yeah,
Cold calling is a good marketing channel, you know.
yeah.
So let's reverse back to cold calling, man. You know, I know a lot of people are against it right now. I mean, you know, you have easy methods now, but cost money, you know, PPL, PPC. So why do you like cold calling so much in 2026?
I like cold calling because it's simple, right? This business revolves around conversations. And I feel like there's so many distractions out today. No, text, cold call, PPC, PPL, direct mail, there's so many different ways for you to get started. And the issue is when a lot of people start spending money on marketing because they want the easy path to deals, they're not ready for it. So these leads come in. I've seen people waste $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on marketing because they thought they could outspend the problem when in reality, the problem that they needed to solve was getting better at conversations. One of my mentors told me that until you can make money from low cost to free marketing, you have no business spending money on paid marketing, right? Because if you can close a deal from cold calling, right? Then you can close a deal with any other type of marketing that you do, and you're going to get a 10x higher return than you would have if you would have started there from the beginning. And nothing's more demotivating for people starting out than spending $1,000 on marketing and not producing anything. And they'll do it for 1 month and they'll quit and they'll be like, this isn't for me. And it's not the truth. The truth is they just didn't master the most important part of the foundation first before starting to build.
That's right, man. And you know, I know it's not fun. Like I know cold calling is the worst thing to do. You don't want to get yelled at and you know, people just hanging up on you all the time. But even though you don't want to do it, sometimes that's the things you got to do the most. You got to get
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And you know, if I find myself procrastinating or not wanting to do something, I've really been even more than ever pushing myself to do it.
That's a
You know,
signal. Yeah. If
yeah,
you
it's a
if you
signal.
feel uncomfortable, I love what you just said there, Travis, because if you feel uncomfortable and you feel awkward doing something, that's a sign to dig in and lean in because that right there is going to give you growth.
Yeah, man, that's right. I like where this conversation's going. Everything's on the other side of an awkward conversation, guys.
Totally.
We, yeah. So, all right. So, cold calling right now. You know, are you? There's a lot of tech. Let's answer some questions for people. Here's the questions I know they have. Okay,
Sure.
for one, is do not call list.
Hmm.
You know, what do we do if I'm cold calling? I'm scared. You know,
Yeah.
what's your answer to that?
Yeah, so the do not call list is a bit of a gray area, right? Because, and it really comes down to your risk tolerance. So if you're the type of person where you're very adverse to risk and you don't want to take any chances whatsoever, filter against the DNC, filter against litigators. There's a lot of people spreading misinformation around that if you're like making a call to offer to buy someone's house, that it doesn't have to go against the D, you don't have to filter against the DNC. And that's not exactly true. That was true until the laws changed about a year or 2 years ago. And now the courts are starting to look at home buyer calls as actual telemarketing calls, even though we're not calling to sell them something. They're looking at, okay, in the end, you're going to make money. So this is type one of those calls, right? So, but what I can tell you is this, right? Um, we have made calls for the last 10 years. Knock on wood, I've never been sued, right? But it's because I've been doing this smart, right? If someone asks to be removed from the list, don't argue with them. Don't try to sell them or convince them why they should not ask to do that and they should sell you the house. That's where people get in trouble. Don't parade your company name around. Hey, my name is so and so, and I'm calling with, JoeHomebuyer123.com. You can leave us a review on Facebook. Don't, that's stupid stuff because they're going to find out who you are, they're going to sue you, and then you're not going to have a good day, right? So you always want to be just a local home buyer, right? We don't lead with our company name. Matter of fact, they don't even know what our company name is until they sign the contract. So I'm not saying that will completely eliminate 100% of the risk, but it eliminates the majority of it. Because the truth is, if you're filtering against a DNC, you're going to reach a lot less people, so you need to pull more lists. You need to more operate more self of volume, right? But if you're not filtering the DNC, you're going to reach a lot more people. So, and
I agree.
sometimes 5 to 7 times more people than you would.
Yeah, man, I agree. Cold calling will definitely thicken your skin,
Yeah,
get you in the game. You'll start, and then you can fight through these objections. Like, you shouldn't be spending, I agree, man. Don't spend thousands of dollars if you can't handle a good objection. If
yeah,
you're not able to work through that conversation and you don't have your flow together, hold back. I'd
yeah.
rather spend a few $100s on deal machine, prop stream, or pull list. What would you recommend? What are you pulling list on right now?
Yeah,
Your
totally.
your team.
So we use two. So we use Deal Machine and PropStream. But the thing is, and then obviously we pull county lists too, but I like Deal Machine for brand new beginners, people who are just starting out because it's very simple, very simple. I like PropStream once people are doing deals and it's a bit more advanced and they're comfortable with it and they're not going to get overwhelmed because PropStream, there's a lot to it when you log into it. So I love the software. And my companies personally use it for the last 7 or 8 years. But Deal Machine is great because they have an AI driving for dollars list in there, which is awesome. And then it's just a lot easier of a layout for newbies when they're first getting started.
Awesome. Yeah. You guys know I'm a deal machine fan. I've been using them a while.
Boom.
And don't forget, guys, just a little plug. We are doing the deal machine giveaway while we're bringing them up. Okay. So go into the group, make sure you're registered, reach out to Elijah. Elijah will take care of you. But yeah, man, deal machine and prop stream, those were both in the last, 10 years of doing this that I've used.
Yeah.
I've used both of those. So, that's why I really like you, man, because we have a lot, I mean, of course, we're different people, but but we share some of the same principles with this
Hmm.
business. And
Yeah.
I don't like to bring people into the group and community that's going to like just give them a whole different direction. And like
Yeah.
you kind of have the same direction as we do, man. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate it a lot. So how is okay, let's before we go, I know we're running out of time, but
Hmm.
what can we do about the conversation here? Like, how can we help people? They've never made a call. Now they're okay about the do not call list. They're not scared of that anymore. But now I'm
Hmm.
scared to actually just get on the phone and say something. Like,
Yeah.
how can I do that? Like, how does that framework look?
Yeah. So what I find is that most people have one of two types of fears. They either have um, they either have a fear of loss or they have a fear of success, right? So the first step is to identify, what type of fear they have. For example, a fear of loss is what if I make a phone call, someone curses me out and I mess up, right? Or what if I can't fulfill on my deal with the seller and then I have to cancel the contract and they hate me for the rest of my life, right? A fear of success is shoot, what if the seller actually says yes and this actually works and I don't know what to do next, So it's really important to first identify which type of fear they have. Like, for example, I had someone come to me and said, Chris, I feel really self conscious about doing this business because I'm not the one buying the deal and I don't have buyers yet. So, that's the reason I've never made a call. Cool. That's fixed by finding your buyer first. If you had buyers, would you feel more comfortable making calls? Well, yeah. Okay. Do that. So that's number one. Number two, the biggest thing you have to remember is that, you're never going to meet these people ever again. Okay, so you're not going to be in the grocery store picking out tomatoes, and the person next to you is going to be like, "Hey, you're the one who messed up on that cold call." It's not going to happen. Like you're never going to see these people ever again. So that's the thing to remember. If you hang up on them, let's say you call them and you just get so excited someone picked up and you hang up, right? Just call them again. They're not going to even know it's you. There's so many sellers are getting so many calls today that they're going to forget you in 10 minutes. So just call them back in 10 minutes.
No, that's so true. Is there such thing as a bad list?
I would say yes and no. That's a double-edged question, right? So I say yes because in today's market that we're in with higher home prices with higher interest rates, not every seller is going to be a good seller to go after, right? Just because someone has equity in their home does not mean that they're going to be motivated to sell. And I find a lot of people target the wrong lists and they get burnt out and frustrated and say none of their sellers are motivated. In some cases, that's true. Now, the second part to that, I'll tackle the other side of that. The other side of that is I have people coming to me, Chris, I'm calling the vacant list, I'm calling the code violations list, the tax delinquent, the fire list, I'm calling all these lists, and none of my sellers are motivated, right? Now, the other side of that coin is it's not that none of their sellers are motivated, they just don't have a proven process to run over the phone, right? Matter of fact, I've had three people that I've worked with in the last 30 days that have told me, Chris, none of my sellers are motivated. One guy had 800 leads he paid for and didn't get one deal. And then another person had 45 leads they paid for and didn't get one deal. And then another guy had been generating leads for 60 days, cold calling on his own, didn't get one deal. He comes to me, we put in place a proven process. The first person who had the 800 leads, in his first week, two deals under contract. The second person, 45 leads, she got her deal under contract on her first call for because I told her call back the people that weren't motivated again, right?
Yeah.
The third person who had been cold calling for 60 days, no results, none of his motivated. He gets a deal. He gets two deals under his contract in his first week. Second week, he got another deal under contract for a total of three from people who were not motivated.
Hmm.
So it's not that sellers aren't motivated. It's just that you're probably not asking the right questions to uncover their real motivation so you can see if the offer that you have is going to be a good solution for them. This is something I struggled with a lot in the very beginning, right? I was winging every call, random, like saying different things every time, but you can't scale chaos and you can't scale random activity. You can only scale like a proven system.
That's true. I was the same way. I think we all start there. Maybe not everybody, but most of us. I
Yeah.
remember making my first call and hanging up. Hello? Oh gosh, hang up real quick.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to say next. So
Yeah.
no, man, it's totally real. And I love how just real you are about it and how you don't get on here and try to fluff it up. And yeah, man, it's all easy. It's the right like I asked that question because I seen Saeed on here, and yesterday we had a little not a issue, but like there was a list issue. Like, we it was a deal machine list. The data came back on this one list. It just wasn't as great as the other list. The people that they did talk to, they wasn't interested. But I found that list, sometimes if you put it away for a few months and you
Yeah.
call it again in 3 more months, sometimes it's a whole different outcome. So
Yeah.
that's why I asked you that question. I love the answer. You gave a really
Yeah.
good answer, man. So
Awesome. Yeah, no, I
some
mean that's really where I see the part that most people struggle with. People can generate leads randomly. People can build relationships with buyers, but actually converting the leads to deals is where a lot of people mess up. So, and it's nothing, and it's not bad they mess up. It's just they got to put in the reps to get better, and that's the only way you can get better. That's the only difference between like me and Travis and maybe some other people you guys have seen that are good over the phone, and maybe you're asking yourself can that ever be me? It seems so far away. Yes, because we started where you guys were, right? We started in that same spot wondering if it could be us, but just putting in the reps, and here we are today.
Yeah, reps after reps, fighting those butterflies and just going after it. Those are the best days. And there's still days I wake up and and like I still do a lot of like I do PPC, so I'm talking to a lot of sellers myself still in my business. And me and Chris run two separate type of operations, and which that's something else that's really cool about this business is that you can kind of do what you want to do. If you want to build a team of people, acquisitions, you can. If you want to be a solopreneur, you can do that too. I know guys that have high paying jobs that do this on the side,
Yeah,
you
that's the
know?
beauty of this is you it's your business. You can do with it whatever you want. And like Travis said, the most important thing is not growing the business that you see online or that you see somebody else have. Really take some time to ask yourself like what would what would excite me? What type of business do I want to grow? And most people don't know in the beginning, and that's fine. So take massive imperfect action. Just remember progress, not perfection every single day. And then eventually you're going to get an idea of what you want, right? I know I have friends of mine, very good friends of mine. They've been doing this business for 20, 30 years. They're still actively involved in their business. They are doing a ton of deals, but they love that the conversations with the sellers and buyers and being involved in every part. That wasn't me, but it's what they love to do, and that's cool because that's their passion. And as long as you're passionate about something, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just everybody has a different way. If we all like to do things the same way, it'd be a pretty boring place. So,
Love it. I noticed the cross on your neck, right? So I just want to know how important is God in your journey?
oh man, he's the foundation. He's the foundation of everything that I do. And it comes through in my conversations with people, like how I actually care about solving people's problems. And really, like, it goes beyond motivation or anything like that. Like, he's a guiding light for the entire journey because this world can be a pretty lonely place without that. And honestly, I don't know if I'd make it to where I am today had it not been for him being behind the scenes the entire time and like leaning into him on the hard days. So it's
Amen,
everything.
man. Faith over fear for sure. That's
Absolutely.
great, man. That's good stuff. Because when you start talking to successful people, and successful isn't always making a lot of money. It's what you just said, finding that happiness, finding that
Mhm.
joy that you want. When you start seeing trends, I always say success leaves clues, and rich dad, poor dad's on the list, of course, but God's always on the list, man. Up
Yeah.
one, number one, right? And family, and I love hearing all these different principles from people that I get to talk to. You have your own thing, right? You do podcasting. You have your own
Mhm.
show. Let's talk about that. So, what are you doing besides, because you're not actually, like you're running the business now. You're behind the scenes. So, what else are you doing? Like, are you coaching? Are you doing like podcasting? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. So we haven't launched our podcast yet, but what we do have is excuse me, we have a Facebook group that we're very active in, and we do live trainings on that every Wednesday at 6 p.m. EST. And we have a YouTube channel and then also coaching. So the majority of my time spent today is hanging with my family and then also just kind of sharing tips from my journey that could help other people speed their process along and showing new wholesalers how to land their first deal virtually, even if they have a full-time job and zero experience.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. I love the group. And you're doing the trainings every week, and it sounds like you're gonna have that podcast running soon, and I'd love to be on it when you do.
Yeah,
Just by the
absolutely.
way. But okay, so yeah, so what's the best way people are you accessible? Can people contact you?
Yeah, for sure. So, one of the best ways to reach me is through Facebook. My username is Chris Logan REI. So you can just search that on Facebook. Feel free to shoot me a DM. Love to connect with you, see where you're at in the journey. If you'd like to join my Facebook group, I'll go ahead and drop a link here in the chat. Because guys, if this kind of resonated with you today and you all want to go deeper on this stuff, again, I just dropped my link in the chat. There's a ton of trainings, case studies in there. We have breakdowns and live coaching inside the group around virtual wholesaling. And if you have joined, and if after you join, you have questions afterward, again, just feel free to shoot me a message directly, and I'd love to help support you on the journey any way that I can.
Beautiful, beautiful, man. Well, I appreciate you. We're running out of time. I think you gave a lot of gems. So definitely, if you're watching this live or if you're watching it on a replay, give it as many replays as you want because I think that each time you watch it, you're going to get something different out of it. I mean, he went over pretty much the whole wholesaling process virtually. I mean, I'm sure there's some holes that you can fill here and there, but that's why you can contact Chris and ask some additional questions. So yeah, we appreciate you guys. And before we go, again, we do have the deal machine challenge coming up where we're giving away 1 full year of deal machine. I think that that's just crazy, guys. I mean, if I had 1 free year of deal machine Chris, what would you have done? 1 free year of
Man, I
deal
would have
machine.
called a lot of people.
Oh man. All that and think when we started, that skip tracing wasn't available like it is now.
My
So
man, like people don't realize how easy they have it now. I'm telling you, when people tell me that they're struggling with things today, I'm like, man, you just don't need to know. I didn't have any socks on. I was walking up the hill, the same thing our parents used to tell us. But
yeah.
no, like honestly, like I was paying. I remember we were skip tracing 250,000 records a year and paying around 6 to 12 cents per record. And it wasn't instant. We had to wait a week to get the skip trace results back, and now you can just go in a deal machine. You can look up a seller. The phone number pops up so easily for you. You can pick up a call and have a call with a motivated seller the same day. and it's just crazy. So
That's right. And the
y'all are
thing is,
blessed.
we're not selling you on this. We're giving it away for free, guys. So me and
Yeah.
Chris are just like telling you guys it's worth it. But all right, thank you, man. You don't care to come back again, do you? You want to come back another time?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to come back. I appreciate you having me on, and it's been a blast. I always like chatting with you. You got a lot of great insights, and I just like chopping it up. So anytime you want to have me back, I'm here. I'm ready, and we'll make it happen.
Awesome. Likewise. All right. We'll see you guys later. Thank you guys for coming. Please like, follow, subscribe, all that fun stuff if you got some value out of this, and we'll